Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies this week with today's Monday's Musings on the 16th of June 2025. For those of you who are regulars to this channel, you will notice that I'm actually wearing glasses today. It feels important to mention that the psychic that needs help to see. The irony is not lost on me individually and collectively as we embrace a time where we are being encouraged to see beyond the obvious messages. Many, myself included at times, have become somewhat lazy when it comes to conversing with our own intuition, our own insight, and the messages around us that are longing to be heard. We can call it the voice of the feminine, we can call it the sound of Pachamama, we can call it psychic energy, seer energy. The name doesn't really matter. What matters is our ability to be able to receive that, to see that, to connect to that wisdom. The glasses that I wear do not help me to see long distance. My vision for the distance, or the future actually, is 2020, much to the marvel of the optician. It hasn't changed in decades, which I'm very, very grateful for and can really feel into. However, my own personal glasses help me to see things closer to me. Now, I share this because throughout my life, I have found reason for things that occur. Sometimes that reason has been evident, sometimes it has been as a result of spiritual bypassing, particularly in my own personal life. When there are things that we are shown that are painful, it is normal, it is a human reaction to not want to feel that pain. Pain for us with our body is often seen as a negative, wrong thing. However, next door are doing works on their building. However, our body's communication, regardless of how we see it, is a way to interpret where we are. No amount of reason, logic, psychic insights, or messages, or coincidences, or synchronicities are going to take us away from that inevitably. This week we are being encouraged to really fine-tune and seek further into what is in front of us. Collectively, the last week or so has been very difficult. Individually, that has also had a personal impact on me. What it has done is to help me not prioritize. It is going to initially feel that the things around us are helping us prioritize who we are. And that is going to come from a belief that we haven't been putting our own needs first, or our way forward first, or that we may have strayed from our own path. There's a very limited perspective of it. It's not about prioritizing. It's about returning home. And the only way to do that is to see what is going on in front of us, to see where we may have lost the connections that we need to remain authentic. Some of the relationships in our life, although painful, and I'm not suggesting that we stay in relationships that are abusive or manipulative or controlling, and I'm not suggesting you stay in any connections that aren't right for you. That's an individual choice. But some of the relationships, some of the connections that we have in our life are there to help us to remain aligned, grounded, and authentic to who we are on a much greater perspective than we can see on our own. It can be very tempting to surround ourselves with those of like views, those of similar interests or ways of being. The question this week is, how much does that help us to grow? Not only in the unions that we have with people, but in the religions that we have faith in the signs and synchronicities that have become a little bit too comfortable, a little bit too reassuring. This week we are actually underneath it all being encouraged to expand, to grow beyond what has become our normal. There's safety in that, I get that. There's comfort in that, I get that. But is there any growth? And this is what we're being asked to look at this week. Yes, many will return to situations, to family members, to friends, to ways of being that have actually always been there. And again, that may come through the initial triggering glimmering of having to prioritize our responsibilities. With that, of course, we will get many stories rise, many wounds rise that have formed the basis of perhaps why we haven't up until this point. There are some aspects of ourself and our, I'm not a big fan of it, but our soul's mission or our purpose, whatever terminology you want to use, our alignment, that we can't outrun. An example, I went to a party this weekend in a particularly rough time for myself and found myself providing support for others. Now, whilst that obviously can initially make me feel out of balance, when I felt into it, it made me feel good also. And it gave me the medicine that I needed to continue being myself. This week, some of the things that we do that we may feel we're doing out of habit, that we may have tried to change, heal, or fix throughout our life, are going to come full circle, and we're going to see the purpose of them in our life, the alignment that they provide to who we've always been. That is going to come through people as well. There are connections that have been made beyond our own understanding, relationships that have been formed many, many times over beyond our own perspective, and they are here for a process. And until that process has completed itself, it will continue to return. There are many cycles that are trying to end, trying to bring completion, but we can expect to go through the solstice before any of this harmony or balance is returned. Now is an opportunity to really look at what is in front of us, to really regain focus on our own understanding and interpretation of the lives that we lead. I'm noticing collectively there are, how can I phrase this? There needs to be an awareness of how we communicate this week. Not so that we can cut out or alter what is trying to be said, and that needs to be maintained, but so that we don't overcomplicate it and add our own perspective too much to the point where we skew if the information that is trying to come through. So I'm noticing collectively that there are a lot of circumstances, a lot of situations that appear almost miraculous, and the language that is being used is very spiritually driven in relation to numerology or in relation to higher beings, in relation to miracles. There is an understanding of what brings us faith. There is an understanding of what has become more than synchronicities, and there is a manipulation of that this week. Being mindful. Not all signs are signs, individually and collectively, but distractions. And that's where that focus really, really comes back to, what are we seeing? Where are we seeing it from? How does that alter the perspective? I was going to say, why does it matter? But our hope, our faith, our belief system, everything that we create is built upon how we see things, the vision that we hold. The more we can take responsibility for that, the more we can stand back, witness and observe ourselves, witnessing other things, the more impact we can actually have. I do understand and I do respect that that isn't the way things may have been done. And it's not about changing things. It's about reusing what has always been there. So an example, this week, there's been many pieces of tat in my garden, many pieces of metalwork that I've actually turned, recycled, upcycled into beautiful pieces of art. So it's not about changing the fact that tarot, for example, is a tool of prediction. That's the beginning. It's about expanding upon that. So it's not about recognizing certain numbers and staying with that. What else is being unveiled here? What else is being unraveled here? It is about growing with our skills and our ability, whether that's healing, writing, holding space, reading tarot cards, predicting, or whatever that may be, you know, caring for our family, caring for ourselves. It's about taking it to the next level. It's going beyond what we've always done. Next year is the year of change. That doesn't always mean we have to completely shift what we've been doing, but complete it, take it to the next level. And that is the opportunity this week. But it's going to take some honesty and some focus with where we're at, where we may have been finding reason or synchronicities or signs, and interpreting them in a way that fits a narrative that no longer provides growth or sustenance for the soul. So on that note, I'm going to do a reading for the week ahead because that's how I work, and it's about looking at the energies, building work. Yeah, there's so much work going on around us. It's about looking at the energies this week. There's something else that wants to come through that I was going to add, but it's there and it isn't there right now. There isn't really tangible actions yet. There is the promise of harmony, there is the promise of balance, but there isn't really, these cycles haven't come yet. So finding peace, taking time, grounding in what is around you right now, that is going to come through in the form of priorities. That is going to come through in the form of being overstretched and having to decide where those priorities lie. But what that priority is actually showing you is who you are. It's connecting you and bringing you back home to yourself. How do we feel about that? How do we actually feel to be in service to whatever it is that's calling us back? How do we feel to be responsible for whatever is going on? Are we doing it out of a place of duty? What is going on there? What needs to shift and be healed and be completed there so that we can take the relationships, the situations to another level? I was going to give a lot of examples then, and that it feels quite important for us all to receive our own examples. So often we share things so that we can hear it. So often we share things to have it reflected back to us. So this week, allowing ourselves to receive and then share, that forms a completion as well. Feeling into the gratitude of our experiences, embodying them, and then sharing. Or at least acknowledging, I was going to say rather than, but that's my perspective, at least acknowledging at what stage of the process we are sharing things from, how embodied that is first. It's all an opportunity to learn about ourselves. And the more we learn about ourselves, the more we can connect to the energies that are going on, the more we can have a impact, a say in the future that is being created. That's the last thing I want to actually offer. This week I've noticed my gums are inflamed, really inflamed, and for me the gums, my ankles are also swelling, which I noticed they're swelling as the tide is coming up where I live, which is interesting. There's a calling from the water on a cellular level as an element for us all to ground and to reconnect to the emotional wisdom that is there. But my gums are being inflamed. Now, gums hold our teeth. Yeah, our teeth are our power. I have a lot of hereditary dis-ease in my mouth and in my gums and in my teeth. So that is being inflamed. Gums are the support system of our power. Our teeth, our jaw, is formed in utero with the same cells that form our pelvis. Okay, so we're talking about our sacral, our root energy, and our power. Yes, our femininity, our intuitive wisdom also. But if we do not acknowledge the systems that support that, we can have a sign We can have a synchronicity, but if we base that or are unaware of what we base our understanding of that on, it's never going to reach its fullest potential. It's never going to create what it came here to create fully, nor are we. For me, the tarot are a very physically embodied practice. It's not about prediction alone. It is about, this is what's going on. This is how we can best navigate it. What are the physical steps forward now? This week, looking at your practices and how grounded they leave you within a situation. It is human nature to want to not be in the midst of pain. It is human nature to not want to feel discomfort. It is our body's way of saying, we need something else here if we're going to witness this or hold space for this. We need support. We need extra love. We need extra warmth. We need extra guidance. We need extra grounding and connection. We cannot do this on our own. We've become separate from our wisdom or our power for whatever reason. It is an opportunity to go back in and get what we need. This week, feeling into that, feeling into any support systems that may not provide that, our own included. So on that note, the cards that I'm going to use for this week are Tarot of the New Vision. I like these cards because they show you what's behind or in front of what you would normally see with the tarot. You get to see the scenes that you wouldn't normally by focusing on the familiar archetypes and images. And that feels really relevant this week as well as we lead into the solstice. The way to restore balance and harmony is to look, for the other side of things, is to look for the polarity of what is occurring from within as well. So I'm going to do the reading, and I'm going to do the reading. It feels very important to be very clear as well, and to keep reiterating what it is you're going to do. Keep reiterating your intention so that you know the energy you're connecting to constantly. I'm going to do a reading this week to look at the energy available and how to best navigate it. Okay. It's almost like once we make that decision, we feel into what is actually being asked of us and the expansion required. And obviously on the top of the pack, I say obviously, on the top of the pack we have the Knight of Pentacles. The moment we say this is what I'm going to do, yeah, make sure you're grounded for whatever is needed to come through, because when we say yes, when we set an intention, we're saying yes. So what are we saying yes to this week? And are we prepared for that? So much more to manifesting than we can ever fully understand, comprehend, or engage in. And it's going to be one of the things that definitely comes to light as we enter next year. Not only change, but our role within change, how we see change, how we bring forth change. And the way to do that is to really look at what manifestation actually asks of us as well as creators. So the most beautiful post today about menopause and how nature has decided that there's something more for women to be creating that is more important than a new life. When we see things that way, when we really feel into, okay, so this didn't happen, but maybe it's because I'm being asked to create something completely different. When we can allow the true emphasis of change to not only surrender to it, but to open and receive whatever is trying to come through as a result of letting go of what wasn't meant for us, we could be quite pleasantly surprised this week. So anything that may feel as if it's taking us off track, particularly going back to responsibilities of family or relationships or jobs or, things that we thought we might have hashtag moved on from, anything that takes us backwards, if we can surrender the belief that we know what that's about, and open ourselves up to the higher wisdom trying to come through, we can expect many cycles to come to some form of completion. All that is required of us is to stay grounded, right? that Knight of Pentacles, to stay grounded. So we have the horse here, but the horse is the energy that's coming through for next year, in the year of the horse. What is going to help us keep moving forward? Our ability to remain stable in our body, in our responses, in what is true for us, to align with where we're actually at. I had a dear friend today say that they finally realized they were doing what they wanted to do. They were actually doing it. To take a moment and connect to where we're at, not where we want to be, not where things were, but where we actually are. And that's that focus, that honesty that is required from ourselves this week. Okay. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. I'm being drawn again to be mindful of the coyote energy, of the trickster energy, of the fact that there are many powers that be that are manipulating the communication we are used to. I'm not going to delve into that too much because there is resistance there, there is awareness there, but being mindful of what you're seeing. Whose narrative does it fit, your own included? Is it the spiritual wisdom that it claims to be? You'll know from how it feels, and trust that this week. Really, really trust that this week. There can be the temptation to look at what you may need to shift or heal, or to make it about us in a way that doesn't empower what we know, to make it about us because we are doubting what we know. It can be as simple as something isn't right here, rather than something isn't right here. What do I need to understand? What do I need to fix? What do I need to shift? What do I need to align to? Oh, card on the floor. Yeah. Card on the floor, 10 of Cups. Yeah, it's flown out of the pack. That happiness, that abundance there is available. But on this image, you can see that they're looking up to the cards. They're not seeing what's going on around them. They're handing that over to an outside influence, rather than watching the children play, or the animal that's loyally by their side, or the home that is stable by the ocean. They're handing it over. This week, feeling into what is going on, it may not be as abundant as we like. It may be more abundant than we thought. It may be enough, and we may not be allowing ourselves to have that. Underneath, we have the Moon card and the Fool card. There is the illusion here that change means we have to keep shifting things. We have to keep changing things, that things aren't good enough as they are. Change happens when we can be with what is, automatically, naturally, as part of an everyday cycle. Provided, like the Fool, we can see it for the first time. How many times do we go back to doing something out of duty or responsibility and think, oh, this again, or oh, I can't believe I'm going through this again? We will only see things from the perspective we allow ourselves to have. So if something feels familiar and samey and that it hasn't changed, it's because our perspective of it hasn't either. Is there something else here to be seen? Nature repeats cycles that are of benefit to it. So somewhere along the line, whether we like it or not, things that are repeating their self, there is a benefit, potentially subconsciously within us, to do that, a secondary gain. That may be that we have something that we need to learn from the situation. It may be that we don't, and we don't want to move on. So really feeling into that this week, taking control of any changes within us first. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. Okay, so we have the Knave or the Page of Swords here. Now, in this deck, you can see that he is facing a storm. That mentally, that sword looks a little bit too big for him. The storm looks like it's going to be quite all-encompassing. And there's a resistance there. Do I want to walk into this? Do I have what it takes to fight this battle now? Well, the swords are all of the mind. So if we're going into anything this week from a rational, logical, needing to reason things perspective or understand things, it may be a bit too much. That's quite an immature way to look at things. Obviously, we can have fun with that. We can be childlike in our wonder. However, we can also shirk responsibility by playing it small or playing ourselves small this week. So really feeling into that and acknowledging what we are facing before we get caught up in it, so that we don't go into a martyr victim mentality afterwards. Oh, I didn't know that this was what it was about, so I wasn't prepared. We have an opportunity to pause here, to really look at what is going on, to really focus on our future, and to take responsibility for what we might need to make that a possibility. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, I've been very mindful that I may get a knock at the door in a moment or two. I have a few people that are expected at one point this week. Very mindful that this video may be disrupted, that the energy may be disrupted because of external circumstances, because of things that still need to play themselves out that are out of my control. So feeling into that this week and being aware of where your energy may leak. So when I say I'm mindful of that, I can actually feel my energy having more attention towards my front door than the cards in front of me. So be very aware of where your energy is leaking and concentrating on situations that you have no control over, rather than being present with what is going on in front of you. It's not to say you can't hold space for it all. However, choose your line of direction this week. I find myself being drawn to break things down, to really focus on the Monday, but also to look at what the whole week is about. On the Monday, there is a need to balance what we give and what we receive in the Six of Pentacles. However, this image doesn't really look much different from the front as what it does from the back. And we can get so caught up, can't we, in boundaries and what balance and what harmony looks like. It is how it feels. Do we feel centered? We are the scales. What we have given, what we get back, what we are acting out, what we are receiving, what we are sharing. Do we feel centered and aligned in that? It doesn't matter what direction we look at that from. It doesn't really matter what perspective we have. It's about acknowledging where we are first before we either receive or give. Are we in a place of desperation? Are we in a place of overgiving or oversharing? How do we know? How do we feel? Where is our focus? So I'm very mindful that mine there is very much I'm trying to over explain. And I can feel that in my throat. This week, particularly on the Monday, looking at any communication that we may feel uncertain with and where we may have gone overboard in trying to convince the energies around us that we know what we're talking about. On the Monday in particular, coming back with some humor, recognizing that in order to understand things, we have to be open to see ourselves and each other differently, expansively. That's where I feel drawn to then look at the energies for the week ahead. It is one thing to look into the energies, but if we're going to be doing it from the level that we've always been at, we're not going to see anything different. So opening ourselves up, ensuring that we're grounded and aligned, and then looking at what something is about. And what we have is the Empress and the Lovers. So we have a choice here to look at the childlike wonder behind anything that's being created. In this deck, the focus is on the children and on the beauty behind the mother. To remember that we are all children of this earth, that we are all figuring it out, that we are all playing a game that half of us do not know the rules to, or many are creating them as they go along. But to remember the beauty within that, behind any decisions that we then need to make. Because in the Lovers, what we have here, right at the bottom, if you look through what is going on, the animals and the horses, if we can see through any decisions this week as an opportunity to take us forward into next year, I'm going to be doing that this week, but how is that going to impact next year? And that's the thing with the solstice, with any decisions that we make, with anything that we create, being aware of the outcome as well. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't make the decision. So be mindful this week of procrastination, because we can get so caught up in what might actually happen. That can be very fear-based. Going back to that childlike wonder, seeing the beauty of it, and being aware of the power and expansion that is available in anything that we set our intention to. What are we saying yes to in 2026, in the very things that we are drawing to us now? That brings me back to the energy of today, of Monday. Feeling in, grounding and rooting whether or not we are ready for what it is we're asking for, whether or not we are capable of what is being asked of us. What do we need in order to fulfill that? I want to say to fulfill that prophecy. There's so many prophecies out there that we are the ones we've been waiting for. The rainbow tribe prophecy, whatever belief system you have, are you ready to step into that, to become that, to create from that? On the Tuesday, we have the Four of Pentacles. And on this card, all you can see actually is the pentacle on the crown. There is some energy there around the royal family. I've already written about it in the blog for the full moon, with structures that need a clearing, that need a new route through some potentially confusing times. I'm not going to read into that. I'm not going to feel too much into that, because that was not the intention. So also being aware on the Tuesday to stick to your intention, to not be distracted. Otherwise there's a temptation here of not being able to see the wood through the trees. Okay, to not be able to focus on what is in front of you. Yes, there is something there for the royal family. Yes, there is a new system trying to come through. However, with us all, does that align with what it was we set our sights on creating this week? Or are we going to be distracted? There's a potential energy leak there, which I'm very aware of, and it's almost like my energy is being pulled away from me. Remember, when we are focusing on things that are not in line with what we had determined ourselves to create, we are going to feel our energy wane. Okay, so letting go of the distractions this week is really going to be important. Yes, of course, there's a temptation to connect to other things. You know, it's not a gossip energy as such, it's a curiosity energy, and there is a bit of gossiping type energy there as well. But underneath it all, when we read on things, when we connect to things, when we watch the news, when we do anything that may not always be for our best way forward, feeling into what it is we want to connect to underneath there. I'm fully aware that if I'm to read on the royal family, my numbers will go through the roof. I'm fully aware of that, and I'm fully aware that that may change the trajectory of not only my intention, what this video is about, but my path. And it's not one that I have my sights set on at the moment. Of course, that could be what's causing the confusion, and if it comes back up again, then absolutely. But this week, just ensuring that whatever you're creating, you know the energy behind it. You know the intention behind it. You know the driving force behind it. Is it connected to your own divinity and your own sovereignty? Doing that on the Tuesday, we then have the Four of Wands on the, I was going to say the Friday, but it isn't, but it's on the Wednesday. So be mindful. Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On the Friday, we actually have the Devil card, but it's going to be linked to whatever comes up on the Wednesday in a unexpected way. So once we've decided where we are, what we need in order to receive and keep giving what is being asked of us and to be of service on the Monday. On the Tuesday, we're being encouraged to then let go of anything that drains our energy. On the Wednesday, that's going to help us really realign to our tribe, to our purpose, to our way of being, to our quote unquote priorities, whatever you want to call it. However, On the Friday, be mindful that that will come up again. Is this really what we need in order to grow and to expand? Are we celebrating what has already happened? Are we hanging around at the party because it's a comfortable, familiar place? Or are we ready to actually move on and bring forth something else, a new initiation into who we actually are here? There is stability. It is to do with our spiritual growth. In this card, it looks like the couple are saying goodbye. In this card, it looks like they have got all they need from that situation and they are walking away and moving forward into a different direction. You can see everybody else here still dancing and they're watching and observing. Come the Wednesday, there are going to be some opportunities to decide whether or not we want to still be part of what is going on, or whether or not we have gained enough information to take that forward into the next stage. Life is a process. It's not growth because we're not good enough. It is we are expanding. It is a process. It is evolution. Then, of course, on the Thursday, and I do say of course, because once we make that decision, we will be guided to look at what we need to walk away from. On the Thursday, we have the Eight of Chalices here, and you can see this character has actually left the party behind him. There's the fireworks, there's the celebrations, and it can be really hard to move forward from what is familiar to what feels comfortable, you know, particularly if it was fun, particularly if it was supportive. Who doesn't like smoke being blown up their own arse? We all love it, right? We all like to be surrounded by people that think we're great. Of course we do. It feels good. I'm not saying that we have to leave behind anything that has provided love or comfort or sustenance, but we do have to be honest this week with where that may have prevented us from seeking different versions of ourselves, from expanding. What that's going to do if we don't do that is cause a real inherent grief in our own potential, in our own soul's potential, and eventually something will call us anyway, just like the water is calling me with swelling, just like my gums are being inflamed to look at different support systems now for my own power and truth. We will feel that this week. Something will call within us. That, yes, of course, is going to bring forth a melancholy and a sentimentality to a situation. We can carry that as well. We can carry fondness and gratitude for what was and continue to keep moving, particularly on the Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday, Thursday. I have to keep checking because actually now I check, Friday is the Two of Wands. So there's that little bit of devil energy, isn't there? Whatever is coming up, to really keep going over our intention, to really keep feeding into the information that is available, to really keep stretching and expanding what we see and what we know, to keep going back over and focus on what is in front of us. Because the truth is, the devil is actually on the Saturday. It felt like it tried to seep into the Friday, but that was also my interpretation by not counting down the days properly, by not knowing where I am. So being mindful of that this week, that can bring light to a situation. It can help us to move forward, but on the Friday, as a result of the Wednesday, it is an opportunity to pause. In the Two of Wands, to pause. Now, in the normal deck, the Two of Wands is actually looking out towards the horizon. He's holding the world in his hands, but he's looking out towards the horizon. In this deck, he's focusing on the world that he holds in his hand. Friday is an opportunity to really take stock. What vision do we have, not only for ourselves, but for the world at large, for the world that we're going to leave our ancestors, for those to come? Are we aligning to that? It's not a judgment, it's an opportunity to ensure that we are, that we get what we need in order to do so. Then on the Saturday, we have the Devil card. What I love about this deck, I was looking for different details. I was looking for something that I might have missed, but actually the thing that has really drawn my attention is the fact that the perspective comes from standing behind the devil. The vision comes from recognizing that we are behind anything that now needs to be brought to light, no matter how uncomfortable. It is our freedom that is calling us. It is our soul's potential that is saying, actually, can you look at this? Is this really what you want? Is it in balance? How does it feel? Are you ready to move on? What do you need in order to do that? Pause, take stock, and recognize that you're not the characters that are tied here. You're not even the devil. You're the very force behind any change that is now required. Oh, that can be the devil itself. Who wants to know that they have control over their life? It's the one thing that we want, but do we actually want that? And that's that Empress lovers type energy. It can be very overwhelming at times. So going back to that childlike innocence, that childlike curiosity, having fun, seeing the beauty in that, looking forward, we have time. I have a really, really dear friend that is incredible at astrology, and coming back to doing readings, Adele, I hope you see this video. And she really reminded me the other day that no matter what is going on with all these astrological influences, no matter what is going on in the world around us, we have time. We always have time. In fact, we are living in a world where the notion is we are running out of time. So that can really initiate that fight or flight within us, meaning we only ever act from our previous situations. Going back to the brainwave analogy, when we slow things down, we allow a different story to come in. We allow an opportunity for our brain to see things in different ways from a more relaxed state. That's that Six of Pentacles. We can say it's about what we give and what we receive, but it's about balance and harmony. This whole week is about balance and harmony as we lead into the solstice. Pausing, allowing time, which I understand could be very, very difficult in a world that seems like it's constantly chaotic. Coming back into the body, letting things slow down, observing and receiving something different, and then acting from that space. I recognize the temptation is not there in the world that we live in. If it's not the news, it's end of the world prophecies that are coming to light, or splits within the matrix, and I'm not saying none of these are untrue. What are they doing to you emotionally, your intuition, your connection to your body, your connection to this earth, your connection to everything that you're seeing and hearing? Take stock, come back, connect to your soul and your spirit, because on the Sunday we have the King of Wands. On the Sunday, I love, love, love how the back of his throne here, he's looking out amongst the kingdom, but on the back of his throne, where the attention is, what he sits upon, the support system here, has the masculine and feminine and love and the lion. Yes, it's about the solstice, but I felt it myself. It's definitely, as we lead into the Lion's Gate, the heart is being encouraged to remain open, to expand. We can decide whether that's to be through heartbreak, fight, flight, fear, love, however we want to see things. It is about the lion heart here. Again, I'm being drawn to the royal family, and I'm hearing the song England, My Lion Heart by Kate Bush. Finding the sovereignty within you first. And that's, even though I can feel my energy leaking and wanting to talk about that kind of stuff, I don't feel in a place where I want to discuss or communicate that. So acknowledging that all is a choice in regards to our spirituality. You have time to connect to that higher energy, to that higher wisdom, to put space aside for what is being asked of you. Ensure that you're ready first. There is no judgment there on the spiritual realm. There is no, rush or anything like that when it comes to our purpose or soul's mission or whatever you want to call it. Regardless of what anybody says, it will happen. So what do you need to remain in balance and in harmony so that you can open your heart from a safer space rather than from a traumatic response? So overall, the energies this week, we have 1, 2, 3 major arcanas. So the creative deliverance here is going to come through fates that are outside of us. You can't push destiny. None of us can twist the hand of fate. Yes, we can have control over our own responses to something, but at the end of the day, what is meant for us is meant for us, cliche as it sounds. Recognizing that this week and giving yourself permission to enjoy the process, to trust the process. And if we feel unable to do that, to really feel into our own mother connection here, our own nurturing connection here, our own view of creativity, of change, of getting what we need, the supply and demand. You know, I know as a midwife, we would do a lot of what we call baby mooning periods when there had been a traumatic separation from a mother and a child. We would suggest skin to skin and to go back to that moment of first being born. Taking that on a broader spectrum, if you are this week struggling with fear in regards to the world around you, what can you do to reconnect to the earth? What can you do to reconnect to your body? How can you be with yourself after what has been some incredible shifts and changes for people? Until change becomes a safe process, we're always going to fight it. So what can we do to help ourselves feel held in transformation as part of the natural communication that it is within our own body? It's constantly happening, right? The moment we breathe in and breathe out, we are changing the chemical elements within our own being. Change always happens. So feeling into what we need in order to remember this ancient wisdom that is within us on a cellular core. Don't overcomplicate things this week. So I'm looking at these three major arcanas and thinking there must be more into it. There must be more here. What I can see is I'm, from this perspective, stood behind all of it. So recognizing that the information that you get behind a situation is going to be based on your own vision behind it this week. Don't overcomplicate it. That's coming from someone that loves to find logic and reason and synchronicity in everything. But look at why you may be finding that. Have you received it? Have you searched for it? And where has that energy come from? So we then have no sword cards this week, which feels important. Obviously, at the bottom of the pack, we did have the Knave of Swords, but that was at the bottom of the pack. So that's the supporting energy this week, is a very young, immature mindset. So be very aware of what foundations that can give you. Not overthinking things. It's more important this week to go into the spiritual side of things, how grounded you are in that, by establishing your emotional mastery. So we have two Pentacle cards, the 6 and 4 of Pentacles. What once brought us balance may not anymore, or what we once saw as balance may not have been our perspective in the first place. So particularly when it comes to responsibilities and what we give and what we get back, that may be a narrative that we have carried on either through wounds or through ancestry that has come to a point of completion, provided we can acknowledge that we are no longer going to take that forward and we're going to find our own way. And that is the opportunity this week, to find your own harmony, your own. It's going to take patience, it's going to take perseverance, and it's going to take witnessing of ourselves and our own actions to find a way that works for us. It's bringing a great smile to my face as well. So giving yourself time to allow that to come through, not reacting from knee-jerk reactions this week. Although if you do know that that will bring back balance as well, but it's the decision that needs to be made is whether or not you're enjoying the process. We often create things out of a way of similarity and familiarity. That's fine if it's doing it for you. If it isn't, being honest and changing that. We have the 8 of Cups, that mastery, knowing the only way to know that there's a different way of doing things is to let go of how we once did them. And that is the invitation this week. It's not that they weren't good enough, it's not that they weren't worth celebrating, but the party is over. It's time to move on to the next one. Okay, so we then have 3 wand cards. So much as we have the 3 major arcanas that are creating an opportunity to manifest something different this week, it all depends on how linked we are to our own spiritual self. Obviously, the union, the sacred union, will come with our physical body, and the new beginning will come from our emotional maturity. But what we take forward from that will come from our spiritual alignment, and that is in the form of the 4, the 2, and the King of Wands. Celebrating where we are, being open to where that could take us, being mindful of the support systems that are beneath us and what we see as the vision now. How aligned we are to that, how much we believe in that. whether or not we've outgrown that as well. I've just noticed in the Two of Wands, this man is actually holding the earth, but not wanting to look at it. Opening ourselves up to perspectives that we may not have, for whatever reason, been ready to see up until this point, in order to get the completion that we've been seeking. Okay, so 50 minutes. I wanted to finish it on a real one-liner then, and nothing came, and that's the thing. It may not be a big fun and a huge farewell or a big tower moment of reality this week or realization. It might just simply be nothing else is needed and it's time to move on. And it might be quite silent behind the scenes. There will be the temptation to make it bigger than it is, as with everything. Healing, predictions, prophecies, relationships. And that's not undermining what is going on. When we make something really bigger than it needs to be, we can almost instill quite a lot of fear in our own ability to deliver it. I used to hear a lot of horror stories about childbirth, and yes, they would happen, but so would normal, simple, beautiful births as well. But the scary stories were what people focused on, and that actually put a lot of people off delivering. So this week, really looking at your perspective of things and the impact that has on the belief you have in yourself. So we have the Two of Pentacles and, of course, the Sun card underneath. It's not about being unrealistic or bypassing, but it's not about downplaying your impact either this week. There needs to be balance and harmony in everything that you do, and the only way to do that is to really connect to the light, to the childlike wisdom and power that is within you. So on this card here, you can see that the child is actually riding the horse. We are riding the changes that are going to take us forward into 2026. We are part of them, not separate from them. And that does mean that we may be shown this week some of the shifts that are necessary on a soul level in order to do that. You know where I am. Have the most incredible solstice, and I shall see you next week. Take care.